lectures organized by UGC. We invite experts as part of this Chetna series lectures to speak on best practices in higher educational institutions. And these lectures are also live streamed on all our social media platforms. And these videos will also be available on our social media platforms after the lecture is over to watch and benefit from the proceedings of these lectures. Today we have with us Dr. Pavan Duggal, who is a leading cyber law expert. He is also a Supreme Court advocate with more than 20 years of experience. And he is well known in the area of cyber law, cybersecurity law, and the emerging technologies. So we have requested him today to speak on the issues related to cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI trends, which are relevant to the higher educational institutions. As you know, across the country, higher educational institutions, including colleges, they are heavily dependent on digital technologies for the functioning of their institutions. And we collect a lot of sensitive data and information, such as the student records, details of faculty members, admission data, research data, intellectual property data, and so on. Although we do take measures to protect our data, it is quite possible that there can be occasions where people can have unauthorized access to this data, or they can disrupt the online platforms that we use for everyday functioning of our universities, or they can spread malware so that these systems will become dysfunctional. So therefore, there is a greater need to provide awareness among our students and faculty members about the possible cybersecurity related issues, possible cyber threats. And in addition to that, our students and faculty members also need to be aware about the cyber laws, so that the systems that we use in our universities can be safeguarded. To speak about this and many other issues, Sri Pavan Duggal will speak to us initially, and then you can ask questions because this lecture is being live streamed across all the digital platforms of UGC. We may get questions on those platforms, although they are not present in this Zoom platform here. And our technical team will forward those questions to me, and then we will request Dr. Pavan Duggal to respond to those questions. And those of you from all the educational institutions who are present on the Zoom platform, you can raise your electronic hand so that our technical team can unmute you for you to put your question or suggestion to Shri Pavan Duggal. So with those comments, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Shri Pavan Duggal to make his presentation.
Thank you, sir, for your very kind introduction. It's a pleasure to connect with you. Today, we are going to talk about something which impacts all of us. But because we are in the education space, we believe that we are insulated. And that being so, it comes in as a surprise that a lot of things are happening around us. So let me share my presentation and try to see what I see on the horizon as we move forward. So when I talk about cybersecurity, cyber law, and artificial intelligence trends in higher education, I can tell you that this is one space that is specifically growing with each passing day. The reason for this is that constantly new developments have begun to start taking place, which is impacting all of us. We have all today heard about artificial intelligence, but do we know that artificial intelligence has now passed the bar examination? So if you want to be a lawyer, you'll have to bar examination. But AI has now the ability to pass a bar examination in flying colors. So very quickly, lawyers are concerned, AI may not go ahead and substitute them. Well, it's not just only about bar examinations, it's also about law school examinations. I can tell you in the US, there are n number of instances where the entrance examinations of law schools are now being routinely cleared by the bar, uh, by the AI programs. Coming to India, I find a lot of innovative approach happening. First and foremost, the UGC needs to be complimented for its focus on cyber security and on AI in higher education. But from Surat, a new news has come in that in a Surat municipal school, they are going to now go ahead and teach AI, coding, and robotics. But I think everything changed last month on 13th of May 2024 when GPT-4o got launched. This is the world's most advanced, the fastest, and the most evolved multimodal artificial intelligence algorithm that's available to humans per se. And this has suddenly now opened up a huge Pandora's box of problems, issues, and challenges. No wonder US lawmakers are saying, let's now try to come up with the new laws which can go ahead and put restrictions on the exports of AI models to countries outside the United States of America. But in America, we have begun to start seeing how there is now a distinctive focus on adopting of ethical principles to govern artificial intelligence. For example, the Department of Defense has recently adopted a new set of ethical principles for artificial intelligence. But in this entire space, there's a lot of other news that we are beginning to find. There is news that in the rush to adopt AI, ethics, responsibility, and security are taking a back seat, not just in companies, but also in educational institutions and in governmental bodies. A few weeks back, the United Nations became very significant because it came up with the world's first global artificial intelligence resolution, calling upon all member nations of the United Nations to go ahead and take steps to promote the further growth of artificial intelligence. But in today's world, when I'm talking about the information age, when there's so much of information overload, it's your ability to process data and information at a lightning speed is what's going to distinguish you from others. And that's the reason we find that artificial intelligence is very paramount. हम लोग बहुत घबराते हैं, डरते हैं, हमें लगता है आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस आ जाएगा तो कहीं ना कहीं हम सबकी जो नौकरियां हैं वो चली जाएंगी, हमारा जीवन नकारात्मक रूप से प्रभावित होगा. बट इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. हर प्रकार की चीजों के दो पहलू होते हैं, सकारात्मक और नकारात्मक. तो लिहाजा आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के भी दो पहलू हैं, पॉजिटिव एंड नेगेटिव. सो वी विल हैव टू अडॉप्ट एआई इन बोथ दिस पॉजिटिव्स एंड नेगेटिव्स विद अस. लेकिन जब आप कानून की बात करते हैं तब आप पाते हैं कि भारत के पास आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को रेगुलेट, नियंत्रित करने के लिए कोई विशिष्ट कानून मौजूद नहीं है. And the absence of a dedicated law on artificial intelligence effectively means that in India, we are still not prepared to deal with this paradigm. Well, 1st of March 2024 and 16th of March 2024, these were the 2 days that the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology had come up with the 2 specific advisories for AI सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स। और इस एडवाइजरीज में मुख्य तौर पर सरकार ने कहा है कि अगर आप आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस प्रोग्राम्स या सेवाएं उपलब्ध कराते हैं, तब आप इंश्योर करेंगे कि आपके आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस प्रोग्राम कोई बायस नहीं करेंगे, कोई डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं करेंगे, भेदभाव नहीं करेंगे, और भारत की जो इलेक्शन प्रोसेस है उसकी इंटेग्रिटी में आप दखल अंदाजी नहीं करेंगे। Well, I take you back in 2018 when the Niti Aayog had come up with a national strategy for artificial intelligence. And that's been very relevant, a very pragmatic set of principles which are even topical today. And of course, with now new developments taking place, we require more refinements in the national approaches on AI. लेकिन हम सबको समझना होगा कि अगर भारत में हायर एजुकेशन में हम हैं, किसी यूनिवर्सिटी में, विश्वविद्यालय में, किसी कॉलेज में अगर आप हैं, तो आपको अगर एक कानून जो पूरी तरीके से लागू होता है, तो वो होता है भारत का सूचना प्रौद्योगिकी कानून सन 2000। This is the Indian Information Technology Act 2000, which is India's only mother legislation for everything in the electronic format. तो अगर आप भारतवर्ष में कोई भी 7 एलिमेंट्स इस्तेमाल करते हैं, so if you use computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, and also data and information in the electronic form, you effectively would be covered under this particular law. तो हायर एजुकेशन के संदर्भ में मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि आप लोग भी इस बात को समझ लें कि ये साइबर लॉ आपकी हायर एजुकेशन गतिविधियों को पूरी तरीके से इम्पैक्ट करता है और आपको इसके कानून का पालन करने की आवश्यकता होगी। This is the law that we made only in the year 2000, but after the Mumbai attacks in 2008, we actually went ahead and amended this law with the Information Technology Amendment Act 2008. और इस लॉ में जहां हमने बहुत तब्दीलियां की, वहां खास बात यह है कि हमने इस कानून में विशेष तौर पर हम लोगों ने साइबर सुरक्षा को की जो डेफिनेशन है उसको इनकॉर्पोरेट किया। We've actually defined the term cybersecurity in very broad terms under this law, and we've also given various provisions on cybersecurity under this law. साथ ही साथ इस लॉ की खास बात यह है कि इसने साइबर क्राइम के विभिन्न पहलुओं को भी कवर करने का प्रयास किया है। Various new kinds of cyber crimes have been sought to be covered under Chapter Roman 11 of the Information Technology Act 2000. You need to be knowing this because you as education institutions are going to be under attack from cyber criminals, from cyber actors, whether it's state actors or non-state actors, who all want to go ahead and disrupt the working of your educational institutions. और इस संदर्भ में बहुत महत्वपूर्ण हो जाता है कि हम एटलीस्ट इस कानून के प्रावधानों को जानें और उसको अमल करने का प्रयास करें। 25th of February 2021, the government of India notified a set of rules known as Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines, and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. ये रूल्स बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और आपके हायर एजुकेशन संस्थाओं पर पूरी तरीके से अप्लाई करते हैं। उसका रीजन ये है कि जब आप कोई भी हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन चलाते हैं, यूनिवर्सिटी चलाते हैं, तब आप अपने नेटवर्क्स का इस्तेमाल करते हैं और उन नेटवर्क्स के माध्यम से जानकारी प्रदान करते हैं अपने इकोसिस्टम स्टेक होल्डर्स को। So you all come in the category of intermediaries. In fact, every institution of higher education in India qualifies to be an intermediary under Section 21W of the Information Technology Act 2000. This is so because every educational institution or higher education institution is a legal entity who, on behalf of another person, is receiving, storing, or transmitting any particular electronic records or providing services with respect to that records. So clearly all universities become network service providers and therefore they get covered under the Information Technology Rules 2021. ये रूल्स अनिवार्य हैं, आपके पास चॉइसेस नहीं है। अगर आप कंप्लाई नहीं कर रहे हैं तो तुरंत कंप्लाई करना आप शुरू कर लीजिए। उसका कारण ये है कि नहीं करेंगे तो रूल 7 जो है किक इन कर देगा। Rule 7 says that if you go ahead and do not comply with the provisions of the IT rules 2021, then be prepared for two kinds of legal responsibilities or exposures. Number one, the statutory exemption from legal liability that's granted to you as an educational institution. That's going to be snatched away from you by operation of law. And the second thing is that you will be liable to be punished for offences under the Information Technology Act 2000 and the Indian Penal Code. तो कानून आपको कहता है कि अगर आप हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन है, यूनिवर्सिटी है, तब आप आईटी एक्ट का पालन करें, इंटरमीडिएरी से संदर्भ में जो प्रावधान है उनका पालन करें. अगर आप पालन करते हैं तो कानून आपको एक सुरक्षा कवच प्रदान करता है, स्टैट्यूटरी एग्जेम्पशन फ्रॉम लीगल लायबिलिटी. यानी कि उसका तात्पर्य यह है कि अगर कुछ भी हो जाए, कोई भी मुकदमा आपके बरखिलाफ हो जाए, कोई क्रिमिनल कंप्लेंट आपके बरखिलाफ हो जाए, कानून कहता है कि अगर आपने मेरे प्रावधानों का पालन किया है तब आपको ना तो एक पैसा देने की आवश्यकता होगी एज डैमेजेस, ना ही आपको जेल भेजा जाएगा. So once the law provides you the statutory exemption from legal liability, it is expecting that you as higher education institutions comply with this law. But if you don't comply with this law, then be prepared for going to jail or be prepared for losing your statutory exemption from legal liability. लेकिन इसके साथ साथ और बहुत सारी नई चीजें आ रही हैं. 11th of August 2023, the Parliament passed and the government notified in the official gazette by publishing the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. अब ये कानून बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर आप डिजिटल पर्सनल डेटा के साथ डील करते हैं तब आपको उसको फॉलो करना पड़ेगा. Now, as an educational institution, as a university, you are dealing with personal data of your students, of your faculty, of your staff, of your vendors. तो आप पर्सनल डेटा तो डील कर ही रहे हैं और इस कानून में जो दायरा है बहुत ज्यादा बड़ा है. अगर आप डिजिटल पर्सनल डेटा को डील कर रहे हैं तो ऑटोमेटिकली इस कानून के अंदर आ जाते हैं. बट इवन इफ यू आर डीलिंग जस्ट विद फिजिकल डेटा ऑन पेपर which is capable of being transformed into the electronic format, that personal data in the digital format is also going to be in the physical format, will be covered under the DPDP Act. Why is this law so important? This law is important because any person who does not comply with this law, against that particular person, complaint can be filed. This would include institutions like universities and colleges. और अगर कंप्लेंट फाइल होती है तो क्या होगा? कुछ ज्यादा नहीं होगा, आपके ऊपर 250 करोड़ रुपए तक का फाइन लगाया जा सकता है. It means that you can actually be fined 250 crore rupees per contravention if you don't comply with the provisions of the DPDP Act. And therefore, all universities in India have to comply with this new particular law. Meanwhile, let's be prepared for new ecosystem. Why? Because we have already entered into the data economy stage, where data is the new oil. And therefore, a lot of things are getting connected on Web 3.0 on a decentralized platform. अलग अलग कंट्रीज अपने राष्ट्रीय लॉज लेकर आ रही हैं. यहाँ पर ये कंट्रीज की सूची है जो अपने यहाँ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस पॉलिसीज लेकर आई हैं. इंडिया भी अपनी पॉलिसी लेकर आ चुकी है. But while all this is happening, let's realize that the law is moving very quickly. European Union has now come up with world's first dedicated law on artificial intelligence, which will be applicable not just to people in the European Union, but also to companies outside EU, provided they are providing services in the European Union. New York has also come up with a new law on artificial intelligence, asking the employers to make sure that they undertake appropriate audits in order to minimize these entire issue of discrimination or bias on AI. But चीन जो है वो बहुत आगे चल रहा है. पिछले 3 सालों में चीन 3 डेडिकेटेड रूल्स लेकर आ गया है जो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को नियंत्रित करते हैं. And these dedicated 3 set of laws and rules in China has made China the front forerunner as far as artificial intelligence legal jurisprudence is concerned. अगर मैं अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी में आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस लगाता हूं या इस्तेमाल करता हूं या मेरी फैकल्टी इस्तेमाल करती है तो कुछ बुनियादी चीजों का हमें ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा. The first will be core ethical issues. आपको इंश्योर करना पड़ेगा कि आपका जो एआई का यूज है वो एथिकल है. You should also focus on accountability and transparency. Also, if you are using autonomous systems, then you have to make ethical use of those systems. And finally, you must look in for human oversight and decision making. ऐसा नहीं हम समझे कि एआई एक ब्लैक बॉक्स है, काला डब्बा है, हमें नहीं पता क्या कर रहा है, तो हम लगा देंगे लेकिन हम भूल जाएंगे. सॉरी, लॉ कहता है कि आपको ड्यू डिलिजेंस करनी पड़ेगी. तो बहुत सारे इश्यूज की आवश्यकता होगी जिसको हम इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हमें समझना होगा कि आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस एक डबल एज स्वॉर्ड है. In fact, you have to quickly start realizing that there is a massive marriage between artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and both AI and cybersecurity are double-edged swords. They can be used for positive purposes and also for negative, destructive purposes. On top of it, let's realize it that it's now not just cyber criminals who are doing traditional cybercrime. They are increasingly relying upon artificial intelligence for doing new kinds of crimes. तभी एक विशेष प्रकार की श्रेणी उत्पन्न हो चुकी है साइबर क्राइम्स में, जिन्हें हम एआई क्राइम्स कहते हैं या आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस क्राइम्स कहते हैं. और ये एआई क्राइम्स, इनकी तादाद लगातार बढ़ रही है. अगर आप सोचते हैं कि लोग जामतारा में, नू में साइबर क्राइम तो करते हैं लेकिन एआई का इस्तेमाल नहीं करते, तब आप गलत सोचते हैं. आज एआई का इस्तेमाल हर प्रकार के साइबर क्रिमिनल्स कर रहे हैं, आपको ठगने के लिए, आपको टारगेट करने के लिए. And now with these new models like GPT-4 and now GPT-4o coming in, there's immense amount of huge computing power that's going to be made available in the hands of relevant state actors or even cyber actors to go ahead and do their respective mechanisms. चैट जीपीटी ने तो ऐसा लगता है एक नई क्रांति का प्रारंभ कर दिया है, क्योंकि चैट जीपीटी फ्री है. कोई भी व्यक्ति जिसके पास एक मोबाइल है या जिसके पास एक कंप्यूटर है, चैट जीपीटी का इस्तेमाल कर सकता है, अपने नए प्रकार के सपनों को साकार कर सकता है. एंड इट कैन ऑल्सो लीड टू हैविंग immense access to all kinds of information. But we have to quickly start realizing that the advent of ChatGPT and now GPT-4o has begun to start raising a large number of legal, policy, and regulatory issues. So universities, institutions of higher education have to be mindful of these legal issues as we are going forward. Why are we saying this? उसका रीजन ये है कि अब खतरे की घंटी आनी शुरू हो गई है. एक नया प्रोजेक्ट ओपन एआई ने शुरू किया है. ओपन एआई कंपनी है जो चैट जीपीटी जिसका आविष्कार किया है. उस प्रोजेक्ट का नाम है सुपर इंटेलिजेंस अलाइनमेंट प्रोजेक्ट. वो कह रहे हैं हमें 4 साल दे दीजिए, हम ऐसे प्रकार की एक नई आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस लेकर आएंगे जो ह्यूमन इंटेलिजेंस को सुपरसीड करेगी. So if this super intelligence is down the corner, I think educational institutions have to quickly start bracing their belts in terms of coming up with new appropriate strategies, not just for effectively using AI, but also be prepared for super intelligence. हम एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस में साइबर सुरक्षा को उतना महत्व नहीं देते जितना देना चाहिए. हम लोगों को लगता है भाई हमने एक बार एंटीवायरस डाल दिया, एक फायरवॉल डाल दिया, कहानी खत्म हुई, कुछ नहीं होने वाला. Little do we realize that our educational institutions are repositories of humongous volumes of data. ना केवल ये पर्सनल डेटा है यहाँ पर आपके पास स्टूडेंट्स का, स्टाफ का, वेंडर्स का, साथ ही साथ एजुकेशन जानकारी भी है. And it's this very information that's going to be potentially targeted by cyber criminals through massive cyber attacks by breaching the cyber security of university systems. अगर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर देखूं तो पाता हूं कि इंटरनेशनली कोई साइबर सिक्योरिटी लॉ नहीं है, कोई ट्रीटी मौजूद नहीं है. And that's the reason why different countries have begun to start coming up with dedicated new laws to deal specifically with the cyber security. Look at the list of countries. ये वो सूची है जो आपको बताता है कंट्रीज इस तरीके से अपने राष्ट्रीय लेवल पर राष्ट्रीय साइबर सुरक्षा कानून लेकर आ रहे हैं और इन कानूनों का पालन करने की आवश्यकता है. भारत में कोई डेडिकेटेड साइबर सुरक्षा कानून नहीं है, लेकिन इसका ये मतलब नहीं कि हमारे यहाँ साइबर सिक्योरिटी लॉ ही नहीं है. इंडिया हैज इन प्लेस इट्स साइबर लॉ which has various provisions on cyber security which will have to be complied with. In addition, India has now come up with IT Directions 2022. These directions are categorically saying that once you come to know of a cybersecurity breach or a cybersecurity incident in your organization, your university, your college, your institution of higher education, then you are mandated to report this within 6 hours. If you don't report this within 6 hours to the nodal agency on cybersecurity, you actually commit an offense punishable with imprisonment and fine. तो अगली बार समझ लीजिए, आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी में, आपके कॉलेज में कोई साइबर सुरक्षा में सेंध का मामला नजर आता है, तो जब आपको जानकारी मिलती है, उस जानकारी के समय से 6 घंटों के अंदर अंदर आपको उसको मैंडेटरली भारतवर्ष में रिपोर्ट करना पड़ेगा कंप्यूटर इमरजेंसी रिस्पांस टीम को, वरना आप एक दंडनीय अपराध कर चुके होंगे और आप पर कानूनी कार्रवाई की जा सकती है। हमें यूनिवर्सिटीज होने के नाते समझना है कि साइबर क्राइम्स भी हमारे को टारगेट करने वाले हैं, and our university ecosystem is not going to be exempt from potential attacks by cyber criminals and cyber criminal gangs. The quantum of money that the world is losing is phenomenal. पिछले साल दुनिया भर में लोगों ने लगभग $6 ट्रिलियन गवाए साइबर क्राइम और साइबर सुरक्षा के प्रति। And by the time the year 2024 comes to a conclusion, we are expected as a world to lose more than $8 trillion to cyber crimes and cyber security breaches. And therefore, we need to be mindful of these ecosystem requirements and realities. Now, in the light of this, let me come back specifically from the perspective of institutions of higher education, universities, and colleges. Now that we have discussed all these issues, it's very clear to all of us that for us, cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI are going to be very, very important. हम कह नहीं सकते कि हम अपनी आंखें मूंद लेंगे साइबर सुरक्षा, साइबर लॉ या आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस पर। क्यों? क्योंकि ये आज की वर्तमान रियलिटीज हैं। And the quicker we start taking cognizance of these growing ground realities in cyberspace and these emerging technological trends for higher education, the better it will be. Now, the issue is that these trends are impacting universities, both in the administrative level and also at the academics level. So you will say, well, I'm a university, I'm teaching academics, how can I be targeted? Well, let's realize that if your university can be destabilized, if your working of your networks can be come to brought to a knot or to a standstill, clearly it could not just impact your imparting of education and academics by the university, it can also irretrievably harm your reputation. तो हम समझ लें कि विभिन्न चुनौतियां हैं जो साइबर सुरक्षा में सेंध हमारे यूनिवर्सिटीज के प्रति लगा सकती हैं, और ये चुनौतियां साइबर लॉ और एआई के समक्ष भी हैं, जिनको हमें देखना है, ध्यान में रखना है और उसको संदर्भ में रखते हुए आगे बढ़ना है। हमें समझना होगा कि जो करंट लैंडस्केप है कोई बहुत अच्छा लैंडस्केप नहीं है। In fact, there are various kinds of cyber threats specifically focused on universities. The most common is data breaches. People, cyber criminals, gangs go ahead and breach into your university data for the purposes of getting an unauthorized copy thereof and for the purposes of monetizing. बहुत बार ये साइबर सिक्योरिटी में सेंध लगाने वाले आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी सिस्टम्स के अंदर घुस के एग्जामिनेशन पेपर्स कॉपी करना चाहेंगे, उनको फिर लीक करना चाहेंगे और आपकी जो साख है, रेपुटेशन है, गुडविल है, उसको नकारात्मक रूप से प्रभावित करने का प्रयास करेंगे। In addition, ransomware is going to be one of the biggest problems for Indian higher educational institutions. अगर हम सोचते हैं हम सुरक्षित हैं, हम गलत सोचते हैं। Ransomware is now the biggest headache that educational institutions are likely to face. This is so because ransomware is a program by means of which some programs comes in your systems and encrypts or locks all your data and then asks money for the purposes of giving you the decryption key for having your access back to your data. तो देखने में बहुत आसान लगता है, कोई बंदा आपके सिस्टम में घुसता है, आपके डेटा को एन्क्रिप्ट करता है और आपको कहता है कि मुझे इतने पैसे दीजिए तब तो मैं आपको डिक्रिप्शन की दूंगा, वरना भूल जाइए। अब अगर तो हम लोगों ने अच्छा बैकअप सिस्टम्स लगा रखे हैं, हमारी बैकअप और रिटेंशन स्ट्रेटजीज अच्छी हैं, तब तो शायद हमें इसका प्रभाव कम पड़ेगा। बट इन केस इफ वी आर नॉट हैविंग इन प्लेस अप्रोप्रिएट data retention strategies, then be prepared that this kind of ransomware attacks could immobilize your university, could go ahead and prejudicially impact your reputation, goodwill, standing, and repute. In addition, phishing attacks are getting very, very common. And these phishing attacks will be targeted in the name of your universities, your institutions of higher education to potential students. तो यूनिवर्सिटी आपकी कुछ एडमिशंस कर रही है, एडमिशन का सीजन आ रहा है और पता लगा आपके नाम पर किसी और साइबर क्रिमिनल गैंग ने लोगों को ईमेल्स भेज दिया, कहा कि साहब हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी में आप ही का नाम लेते हुए लिंक दे दिया कि आप यहाँ पर क्लिक करिए, पैसे दीजिए। तो लोग आपके नाम पर पैसे ले लेंगे, लेकिन जो इनोसेंट यूजर्स हैं उन्हें शिकार बना देंगे साइबर क्राइम का, एंड दिस अल्टीमेटली कुड इम्पैक्ट यू। Further, I find that there's a huge amount of vulnerabilities that are existing in the current educational institutions. Most of the time, we find that our systems are not updated. They are most of the time outdated. We find lack of awareness. लोगों को जागरूकता ही नहीं है साइबर सुरक्षा के संदर्भ में और उसका क्या प्रभाव यूनिवर्सिटीज पर, हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस पर हो सकता है। और अधिकांश तौर पर हम पाते हैं कि जितनी साइबर सुरक्षा में हमें कदम उठाने चाहिए, हम अक्सर नहीं उठा पाते, because these insufficient security measures are existing in the university ecosystem. One realizes that our vulnerabilities are massive and that we could potentially be targeted. इसलिए बहुत जरूरी है कि हम लोग कुछ बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस का पालन करें. We should implement robust security policies at the university level. हम लोग रेगुलर सिक्योरिटी ऑडिट्स करवाएं और वल्नरेबिलिटी असेसमेंट्स कराएं, ये जानने के लिए कि हमारे सिस्टम में कहाँ-कहाँ कमजोरियां हैं, खामियां हैं, जिनको फिलहाल ढकने की या जिनको एड्रेस करने की आवश्यकता है. We need to train our staff and students on cyber hygiene, and we need to invest in more advanced security technologies. Another thing that at universities and higher institutional educations that we need to do is the fact that we will have to comply with the applicable legal frameworks. So अगर आप लोगों ने अभी तक साइबर लॉ के साथ पालन नहीं किया है, तो मेरा सविनय निवेदन है कि कृपया आप साइबर लॉ यानी कि भारत का सूचना प्रौद्योगिकी कानून और उसके तहत जो रूल्स और रेगुलेशंस केंद्रीय सरकार ने बनाए हैं उनका पालन करें. Please ensure dedicated compliance with the provisions of the Information Technology Act 2000 and rules and regulations made thereunder. Let's remember and remind ourselves that as institutions of higher education, as universities, we are network service providers and we qualify as intermediaries under Section 21W of the Information Technology Act 2000. एक बार हम इंटरमीडिएट घोषित हो जाते हैं और हम उसके दायरे में आ जाते हैं, तब भारत का आईटी एक्ट कहता है कि आपको ड्यू डिलिजेंस एक्सरसाइज करना पड़ेगा, सावधानी एक्सरसाइज करनी पड़ेगी जब भी आप अपनी ड्यूटीज का निर्वाह कर रहे हैं. So the mandate of the law is please exercise due diligence while you discharge your obligations under the law in order to gain your statutory exemption from legal liability. So let's, as educational institutions, go back and revisit our compliances with the Indian IT law. Further, now the new data protection law has been passed. It's not yet implemented, which effectively means, that you've got more preparation time. अभी सरकार नहीं आई है, अब कुछ देर के बाद ही हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि डीपीडीपी एक्ट में नए रूल्स लागू हो जाएंगे और डीपीडीपी एक्ट की जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है वो भी लागू हो जाएगी. So in this interregnum period of time, till such time that the rules under the DPDP Act do not come into force, please make your appropriate compliances, your readiness, and your ability to be compliant with the various principles that are given under the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. Further, we also need to do policy development at university levels. Universities need to develop their comprehensive cyber policies, including cybersecurity policies and AI policies. You have to have in place incident response plans. In addition, आपको data privacy policies होनी भी अत्यंत आवश्यक हैं, क्योंकि आप डेटा प्रोटेक्शन कानून भी आप पर लागू हो जाएगा. अगर आप लोगों ने इसका पालन नहीं किया तो 250 करोड़ रुपए तक का हर्जाना आप पर लगाया जा सकता है. And mind you, 250 crore rupees is a humongous volume of money that's going to be there. अगर हम यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं, अगर हम एआई एप्लीकेशंस पर अपना नजर डाल रहे हैं, तो हमें कुछ कदम और उठाने पड़ेंगे. हमें पर्सनलाइज लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंसेस थ्रू एआई ड्रिवन प्लेटफॉर्म्स को ज्यादा प्रोत्साहित करना पड़ेगा. We will have to make sure that we adopt the appropriate tools for academic research and data analysis, which are based on artificial intelligence. We also need to use artificial intelligence in administrative functions, whether it's for admissions, whether it's for scheduling and stuff like that. लेकिन जब आप एआई का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं तो एआई को साइबर सुरक्षा में डिप्लॉय करने को ना भूल जाइए. एआई आज इतना जबरदस्त ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव फोर्स है कि उसका इस्तेमाल साइबर सुरक्षा को बढ़ावा देने के लिए भी किया जा सकता है और साइबर सिक्योरिटी में सेंध लगाने के लिए भी किया जा सकता है. You need to, as universities and institutions of higher education, adopt AI's use in such a manner so that it can enhance your cyber security measures, including threat detections and response automation measures. और क्योंकि आप एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन हैं, तो आपको एथिकल और लीगल कंसिडरेशंस भी फॉलो करनी पड़ेंगी. You'll have to address that there is minimal bias, minimum discrimination in AI algorithms which are being used by universities. You'll have to ensure transparency and accountability in AI systems, and you'll have to adhere to all applicable AI ethics guidelines and regulations as and when they come up. लेकिन सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि अब यूनिवर्सिटीज को साइबर सिक्योरिटी, साइबर लॉ और आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को अपने करिकुलम का हिस्सा बनाना पड़ेगा. And now these are no longer just elective courses. They will have to be integrally made part of core courses which have to be mandatorily done by every student in whatever discipline of study that he or she is doing. The reason for this is that today we have already entered the digital age. And in this digital age, every student would be required to know the nuances pertaining to cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI. And if universities and recommends that appropriate, updated, latest, proactive curriculum on cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI is adopted in universities, that's going to be immensely going forward in empowering the students and helping the making ecosystem far more secure. हमें विभिन्न प्रकार के प्रपोजल्स को एग्जामिन करना पड़ेगा ताकि हम करिकुलम डेवलपमेंट वो बनाएं जो एकेडमिक तो हो ही हो, लेकिन साथ ही साथ practically oriented भी हो. Today when students come out, the industry people find that they are not employable because they are not yet ready for industry standards. So we will have to come up with curriculums that are in sync with internationally accepted norms and industry standards. We also need to encourage collaboration between computer science, law, and other departments because interdisciplinary approach is the mantra of today's times. और साथ ही साथ हम लोग यूनिवर्सिटी से अकेले ही ये काम नहीं कर पाएंगे. हमको कोलैबोरेशन का इस्तेमाल करना पड़ेगा, इंडस्ट्री के साथ हाथ मिलाना पड़ेगा. And therefore, collaborating and doing industry partnerships with technology companies, legal firms can actually help provide not just the university, but also its ecosystem stakeholders with real-world insights and training opportunities. कहीं ना कहीं जरूरत है कि हम लोग अपने मानसिकता को बदलें, अपने माइंडसेट को बदलें. And for that, we will have to go ahead and adopt cyber resilience as a way of life. Because let's now realize it, we will always are going to be targeted. There will be some kind of cyber attacks on some kind of data or otherwise. So once we start building in a culture of cyber resilience in the universities and the institutions of higher education, I believe that's going to be a human's service for the nation. We will also need to be having and establishing dedicated cybersecurity and AI governance frameworks within universities. And for that, appropriate guidance can be given by the University Grants Commission to all universities. कहीं ना कहीं हम सबको समझना होगा कि हमारी लर्निंग हमारी पढ़ाई के साथ खत्म नहीं होती. हमें लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग करनी पड़ेगी, कंटिन्यूस लर्निंग करनी पड़ेगी. And therefore, we will have to promote ongoing education and training programs for staff and students in the university. And we'll also have to encourage research and innovation in cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI as we go forward. Finally speaking, मुझे लगता है कि आज हम बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट दौर से गुजर रहे हैं. हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि इतिहास हमारे सामने बन रहा है, नई टेक्नोलॉजीज विकसित हो रही हैं. तो इस संदर्भ में जितनी जल्दी हम अपने फ्यूचरिस्टिक माइंडसेट को अडॉप्ट करेंगे उतना अच्छा होगा. We will have to understand that the digital landscape will continue to keep on getting transformed and evolved with each passing day, week, and month. And therefore, this particular evolving landscape on cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI is going to be particularly relevant, topical, and will have a huge impact upon higher education, upon universities. And we need to be mindful of this and be proactively looking for new opportunities or what new innovative strategies should we be able to adopt in order to deal with the emerging issues and challenges thrown up by these aspects of cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI. And therefore, my suggestion is a call for action. We'll have to urge universities to take proactive measures to address these trends and ensure a secure, compliant, and innovative educational environment. अगर हम ये तमाम सारे पहलुओं को एक साथ जोड़ के आगे बढ़ेंगे तो मुझे लगता है कि हम एक बहुमुखी स्ट्रैटेजी लेकर आ पाएंगे, ना केवल अपनी यूनिवर्सिटीज को ज्यादा टॉपिकल और रेलेवेंट बना पाएंगे, बल्कि साथ ही साथ जो अपने विद्यार्थी हैं उनके हाथों को भी सशक्त कर पाएंगे. We all have to realize that it's a constant march. And we, as the institutions of higher education, as universities, as colleges, have to play a very focal thought leadership role in terms of leading from the forefront on proactive, innovative approaches and strategies on cybersecurity, cyber law, and artificial intelligence. It's a fantastic space to be in, and we really look forward to your working in the space. Congratulations to the University Grants Commission, to the thought leadership of the Honorable Chairperson for leading us in a direction where the Indian higher education ecosystem are very well going to be in place, not only to become global thought leaders on use of technology and cyber elements in education, but also will start making up benchmarking standards, which then are likely to be followed by other educational institutions across the world. I'll pause here and hand it over back to you, Mr. Chairperson. I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pavan Duggal, for a very comprehensive lecture on cybersecurity and the use of AI in higher education and also the cyber law. There is no doubt that issues related to cybersecurity and the ethical considerations surrounding the use of AI in education, these are all at the top of our mind. And we need to create more awareness among our students and faculty about these issues. And also, as you suggested, it is high time that we offered relevant courses in these areas to our students, either as elective courses or as core courses as part of their programs. And UGC is providing a lot of flexibility to the universities to integrate these kind of courses in the regular degree programs of our students, irrespective of in which discipline our students are educated, whether they are studying BA, BSc, BCom, law, or engineering, or medicine. These are issues that cut across all the disciplines. And therefore, there is an increased need to focus on these areas. And the lectures such as yours will definitely make our faculty members and educational institutions to brainstorm on these matters. We have a few questions coming from the audience. And one of the questions is, will you provide some good examples of ethical use of AI in the teaching context in any subject in a university?
Thank you, sir, for your remarkable insights. First and foremost, today in educational institutions, we will have the biggest problem of use of AI for cheating. Today, ask any of your students to do a project and they will go to ChatGPT and generate a project. Now, therefore, trying to realize how do we prevent students from misusing the available generative AI for doing their programs is a big problem. And therefore, these new programs like GPT-4o are actually inculcating a culture of academic dishonesty. We are actually telling our students that you be dishonest by using these new AI algorithms. So some way how we can be using more ethical practices is, let's look at what the West is doing. पाश्चात्य देशों में उन्होंने एक एक्सपेरिमेंट किया है कि साहब हम अपने एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस में एआई का इस्तेमाल नहीं कराएंगे. Some institutions are actually banning. Now, banning is not a good idea because you can never ban use. At best, you can ban or you can block the use of a generative AI in your ecosystem, in your university. But once the student goes back home or is outside the premises of your campus, he's still going to have access to this. So we will have to sensitize students that they can start using these technologies, but they will have to be ethical in the handling of the same. There are a number of tools that have now come in, which are able to detect your particular language in your project to say whether this is the language generated by AI or Gen AI. We should definitely use these tools more frequently. But more importantly, we need to tell students that let's not go into a culture of artificial stupidity. And that's a new culture that's begun to start coming in with the advent of artificial intelligence. Why? Because people are becoming stupid. They are relying extensively on these AI algorithms without thinking of the fact that once I put anything on this algorithm, it's gone forever and my privacy is gone. तो अधिकांश बच्चे समझते नहीं हैं कि जब वो अपने पर्सनल डिटेल्स शेयर करते हैं इन जनरेटिव एआई प्लेटफॉर्म पर, तो उनकी निजता के अधिकार का संपूर्ण हनन हो जाता है और साथ ही साथ उन्हें आभास भी नहीं होता कि उसका इफेक्ट क्या होने वाला है. So we need to encourage students to start using ethically these AI practices, these AI algorithms. We also need to make sure that we should have in universities an ethical use policy in the context of AI, including generative AI. I will actually suggest that the University Grants Commission can actually give a kind of a template guidance to all universities, that this is the kind of a template we would want all universities to follow for having ethical use in AI policy. And I would be happy to provide my expertise and my focus in this area to the UGC, to the universities in drafting and assisting in that regard. That's one. Number two, we'll also have to sensitize users that generative AI at best is only a tool. It is a toy. Don't make the toy the foundation of your existence or the basis of your educational initiatives. We use a toy, but with care, caution, and due diligence. So that could be initial starting points. Most of the teachers today don't want to talk about it because they know they themselves are using ChatGPT for generating stuff. So we will have to have equal ethical principles and approach vis-a-vis our staff, our lecturers and professors, that they don't use ChatGPT either for plagiarism purposes or for the purposes of coming up with ideas which this AI is coming up. A number of companies are already being filed, are facing litigation in the US because of plagiarism issues as a result of output that's generated by this Gen AI. When I look at ChatGPT or GPT-4o, its privacy policy and its terms and conditions tell you, well, you are the owner of what you generate. So in case you want to go ahead and exercise your intellectual property rights on this, please go ahead by all instances. But it'll be nice if you can acknowledge my factum that this is generated by me. But then there are huge problems. If your own student is relying on an output from this AI algorithm, that output could itself be coming out of some copyrighted work of somebody else. And lo and behold, if that particular intellectual property rights owner begins to start suing the university or the student, it opens a Pandora's box of legal issues. Therefore, we begin with basics first, small baby steps on focusing on ethical use of AI in education institutions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There is another question. It says there are crores of cases pending in our legal system. Can Gen AI help in reducing the delays associated with dealing with these cases?
It's a fantastic question, sir, and I completely endorse the vision and the purpose from where the question is coming. Ideally, this is the best way forward. Why? Because technology today can be used for the purposes of clubbing various matters together, getting them heard together so that our huge problem of pendency of cases could be minimized. But there is a problem. The problem is that the technology has still not yet reached a level of maturity that it can be used for legal determination. In October of last year, a matter came up before the Delhi High Court, where the plaintiff was a shoe manufacturing company, and they went to the Delhi High Court saying, sir, we are one of the best shoe manufacturing companies. We went to ChatGPT, and this is what the ChatGPT is saying about us, about how we are a top company. Please rely upon this output from ChatGPT and give us an injunction. The Delhi High Court said, well, artificial intelligence is growing. It's an important technology, but it's not yet evolved yet, or is not yet mature, so that it can be used for either legal determination or factual determination. So that's the current position of law as of now. But having said that, we can definitely use this technology for bunching of cases. And for one example, I can give you one small example. We have so many of these traffic challans that's issued to all people. So if all traffic issues or traffic challan issues can be used by or can be dealt with by an AI algorithm, that's going to ease off some kind of pressure. And for that, I want to go back to the experience that's happening in Estonia. In Estonia, they have an AI judge. The judge is an algorithm, and particular claims up to $10,000 or so amount of money is the limit up to which these kind of matters can be heard by an AI judge. If it gives a decision and you're not satisfied, you can go ahead and file an appeal to a human judge. So maybe we can start looking at that. I agree with the fact that a lot of these matters that are pending before courts will have a lot of contentious issues, and they will have to be appropriately dealt with by human judges with the human cognitive capabilities. So we can definitely start using for small, low-hanging fruits this technology for reducing areas. But if you are expecting this technology to be writing judgments for judges, or supplementing or completely transforming the judgment process, then I think we are still a long way away, because there is a lot of development and evolution that has yet to take place in AI. Thanks, sir.
Right. There is a question from Dr. Fahim Masoodi, University of Kashmir. He says, in cases such as SIM cloning and SIM swapping done by these cyber criminals, the end users may not be directly involved, and the security lapse could primarily be on the part of the service provider. So who should be held accountable in such cases?
Well, there are two things, Dr. Saab, when you talk about this. In a case of SIM cloning, typically the person who clones the SIM is the person who commits the crime. But then trying to identify him becomes a huge problem. Why? Because we don't exactly often know his identity or her identity, and they are often hiding behind technologies like virtual private networks or VPNs. So in a scenario like this, the law is saying that if your SIM is cloned, then it's your responsibility, and the chances are that the police will come and start knocking at your door, saying, look, it was your SIM that was used for doing an illegal activity. And then the onus will be upon you to show that it was not my SIM. But that puts you in a very, very unadvantageous position. And oftentimes people find that people have no particular stuff. तो मैं कहता हूं कि अगर आपको लगता है कि अगर आपका फोन 4-6 घंटे नहीं बजता, या जो नॉर्मली घंटियां बजनी चाहिए, या फोन पर मैसेज आने चाहिए नहीं आते हैं, तो शायद ये खटक हो सकती है कि आपका जो सिम है वो कार्ड क्लोन हो चुका है. And for that, it will be very imperative that you must be active as diligent cyber users. The government already has given you two options. You can report any of these cyber incidents to the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal at cybercrime.gov.in. You can also go ahead and make a complaint to the National Cybercrime Helpline number at 1930. 1930 एकमात्र नंबर है. जब कभी प्रॉब्लम नजर आए कॉल कर लीजिए. क्यों? क्योंकि ये नंबर पुलिस अधिकर्मी मैन करते हैं, and they will be able to register your complaint. But practically speaking, the law says it will also have to be the responsibility of intermediary. Now, problem what happens is, I want a new SIM. I go to the concerned shop. He wants a copy of my Aadhaar, a photocopy. I, without even thinking twice, give him a photocopy of my Aadhaar and then walk away, thinking that that's the end of the matter. Now, whenever we strike it on both the sides, only give the photocopy of your mask Aadhaar and write it down that you're giving this to this particular company for this particular purpose. Put your signature and your date. Why? That's going to help you slightly become more secure. You will have to start adopting cybersecurity as a way of life, as a culture, because once the police comes to you and says your SIM has been misused for an illegal activity, the law says the onus is going to shift on you. You will have to show, no, it was not me, somebody else who's done that. And for that, again, you'll have to have in place various mechanisms. You'll have to show you did your due diligence. And the moment you came to know about it, you reported it just to the police. So any unusual activity happening on your phone stops working or does not having any kind of calls or messages for 4 or 5 or 6 hours, that's a prima facie indication there could be something wrong. There's no harm in reporting something wrong and getting an acknowledgement from the government. Why? Because then you will be in a position to show that you are a victim. And even if the police comes knocking at your door, you will be able to have a position of safety and strength when you are talking to the police. But ultimately, even if you are caught in any matter of misuse of SIM cloning, please don't despair, because ultimately the prosecution will still have to prove that it was you who misused your SIM for the purposes of doing anything illegal. We are still in a system of proven justice. हमारे यहाँ dictum ये है कि every man is presumed to be innocent unless proven guilty. So please make sure कि आपके पास appropriate कागज हों, दस्तावेज हों कि आपने ड्यू डिलिजेंस कर रखा है. लेकिन अगर आप ही केयरलेस हो जाएंगे और अपना सिम कार्ड किसी और को दे देंगे या किसी और आप शॉपकीपर के पास जाके अपना आइडेंटिटी छोड़ देंगे, तो कहीं ना कहीं दायित्व आपका भी आ जाएगा. That's the reason we'll have to start adopting cyber resilience, cyber security as a way of life for everyone. Don't expect that I do something wrong and the government will be responsible for everything. We are all working in a collaborative ecosystem where everybody has to contribute in making the cyber ecosystem far more strong. And let's realize that the weakest link in this ecosystem is the human link. And we are as strong as our weakest link. Therefore, the onus has to be upon us to make sure that we individually do not become the weakest link in the cyber ecosystem and thereby contribute to the cyber security of the cyber ecosystem. Thanks, sir.
Mhm. So there is another question. It says the fraudulent phone calls have become a norm today, and each user gets so many fraudulent phone calls. Can something be done to differentiate between a fraudulent call and a genuine call from a bank or a service provider?
Well, sir, things can definitely be done, but for that, we'll have to have in place appropriate legal frameworks. Currently, we have to realize that the Supreme Court of India, in the landmark case of Justice Puttaswamy versus Union of India, has declared that all of us Indians have a fundamental right to privacy as part of fundamental right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. But having said that, we do find that India still doesn't have a dedicated law on privacy. So in a scenario like this, when we are getting this fraud calls or spam calls, we also have to realize we don't have a spam law. We did begin with something called a do not call registry, but it never got to be successful. And people find so many indirect ways to bypass. In fact, the moment you register on the do not call registry, you make sure that you get double the kind of calls that you would get otherwise. So I think we will have to come up with more legal frameworks. We'll have to make service providers more accountable. Service providers and intermediaries can be mandated with new sets of due diligence by the government and the new rules that can be put up under Section 87 of the Information Technology Act. Right now, some new phones have started coming up, which have started automatically telling you this is a suspected spam or this is a suspected fraud. At least these are basic warning signals. If you're having these latest phones, then at least adhere to these stuff. And let's learn to have one basic cyber hygiene habit, which is that we will only pick up a number that we recognize. In case if we don't recognize the number, it's much better for us not to pick up. And if you are really that very curious, you can call from a landline to that number, but don't call back from your own mobile phone. Because once you call back from your mobile phone, you're confirming that you are live, your number is live, and you're ready to be made a victim of a cybercrime. So we will have to adopt again cybersecurity as our mindset issue. We'll have to be careful. These fraudulent calls will keep on coming in. And now these new calls are even worse. They begin with a call and then they say, sir, can you switch on to video? And lo and behold, if you switch on to video, you'll find a policeman or some man in a police uniform saying that they have got some parcel which has got drugs and which is connected with your Aadhaar number. So you better well hold on, and they'll connect you to somebody, other person who says he's from the cybercrime unit, and that you are going to be booked up for very serious offenses till such time you pay an X amount of money. These are all kinds of digital arrest matters that are coming up. Actually, cybercrime post-COVID-19 has evolved into a different level altogether. Post-COVID-19, we've already entered into the new cyber world era, or cyber world order, where cybercrime is going to be a daily lifelong companion, and cybersecurity breaches are the new normal. Therefore, let's realize it till such time new law does not come in. The onus is on us not to pick up any unnecessary calls. And even if we make such a call and we realize it's a fraudulent call, please immediately disconnect. Please realize today cyber criminals are weaponizing fear and panic, the two elements that we got in the COVID era, which still are with us, against you. So start being more cautious. It's always a good time to disconnect. It's always a good time to switch off your phone. Don't worry, because tomorrow morning the sun will still rise up. Things will still be fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are many messages which are coming, thanking you for giving such a lucid and wonderful lecture, and also for clarifying many questions that pop up in our minds, but we don't know where to find an appropriate answer. But you have very nicely clarified and provided answers to all such questions. We have spent nearly 1 hour, and you have made a wonderful lecture also. Thank you very much, Dr. Pavan Duggal, for being with us. And I also would like to thank all the audience who are present on our platform here and also are watching on the social media platforms of UGC.
Thank you, sir, for giving us this opportunity. It's a pleasure to share my viewpoints at the UGC CHETNA series, and I'll be delighted to offer my expertise to UGC and to all the universities in making them more cyber secure, cyber resilient, and in helping them draft appropriate compliances and policies so that we can be a model higher education ecosystem, that the countries and stakeholders around the world can follow the high standards that the UGC and its constituent universities are raising in the context of cybersecurity, cyber law, and AI. Thank you, sir, for giving this opportunity to me.
Thank you, and goodbye to all.
Thank you.